and welcome to the Cancer Journey podcast. I'm Alicia.
And I'm Sherry Ann.
So we'll go ahead and start with Pesh. Sherry Ann, will you Pesh first?
Yes. So physically 3.75, emotionally 4.2, spirit 4.4, hope 4.5, and my word is refresh. Your
Okay.
turn.
Physically, I'm feeling 3.5. Emotionally, I'm 4.5. Spiritually, a 4. And my hope is a 4.5. And my word is voice. Obviously, my voice isn't my normal voice, so.
I was going to say, or lack of, but that voice is such a loaded word. Not loaded, just has so possibilities and meaning.
Yeah, but I don't necessarily see it as a negative thing for my voice to be like this right now. So
All right. So what are we talking about today?
today we are talking about strengths, but specifically strengths as in our live in-person event, the Foundation of You, which we have coming up on February 1st and 2nd. So we wanted to kind of give a little bit of a taste, a little bit of some insight of like, what does that mean? Strength is such a loaded word.
Right. It can mean so much, it's like strength, muscle strength, or it can be what we refer to as your inner strength. It's like, what are the things that you and we uniquely do that is kind of this natural proclivity or part of who we are, in terms of our character, our personality, just it's part of who we are and what we bring
Yeah.
to the world.
Yeah. And initially, when you hear the word strength, you think of, like you said, being strong, but also sometimes there's this like clear indication that, well, the opposite of strength is weakness. And like a lot of times when it comes to like work, if you're thinking of like work interviews or something like that, the idea of like, oh, what's your greatest weakness? And is it really your greatest strength? And we approach it from such a different perspective. I mean, strengths, we really go by that Don Clifton strengths with the his strengths assessment, and we see them as talents, and we see them as a perspective you're in, and we see them as really, they're quite flexible while they are like rooted in who you are, and there is this clear foundation for yourself, which is why it's a big part of the foundation of you get at the end of your assessment, you either get your top 5 or you get the ranking of the full 34 strengths of yourself. It's a baseline. It's giving you a very general indication of like what makes you and how you approach things. And kind of similar to like horoscopes and other diagnostic tests, right? It can feel like sometimes those things don't resonate, and it's so easy to feel judgment when like we initially get the list of whatever it is and be like, that's not me, or that's not how I go about it. But what we really love, what I also really love about strengths, is that they're so variable. They move with you. It is this like foundation that you can come back to, but it shifts with you, and the way it shows up is going to be very uniquely you.
Yeah. I mean, I have done a myriad of those assessments, personality assessments, um, character assessments, and over the years, and I have found myself coming back to StrengthsFinders again and again, and so much so that we really make it part of who the Cancer Journey Institute is because of its specificness to the individual. Where like I did Myers-Briggs and DISC and what's the new kind of hot one? It's the I can't even remember the name of it. There's so many of them. And I still come back to StrengthsFinders. And I actually have to say that I've been working with them since Oh, probably like 20 years now, which is a pretty long time, and have invested in it so that it becomes part of the culture of us at the Coaches Cancer Journey Institute. And I say that because we tend to go, well, how do you really know? It's like, here's a mechanism that's telling me who I am, and how can I trust it? Well, what I really love about this particular um, methodology is that it's so unique in terms of how it categorizes you, that you just in the top five of your strengths. So the 1 to 5 is in, strengths order. It does change over time, but it never gets out of whack, meaning you don't go from bottom to top. You don't do that flip. It's more like a reorganization from what's in top and what's second, third, fourth, fifth. But it's 1 in 33 million. So my top five are unique to me, which makes me 1 in 33 million people will have
Mhm.
the exact order. And that order matters because it's the five in combination with each other, not even talking about the top 10 or all 34, but that just the five speaks specifically to me. And
Mhm.
so I may have strategic, just like somebody else, in the same spot as their top five. But because of how the other four sit and what they are, that strategic shows up differently for me. And I love that. The
Yeah.
the individualization of it's for me and about me gives me confidence that it really is speaking to who I am. And
Mhm.
then from there, it becomes, as you said, the foundation. It's a thing I can go back to and lean into as my resource of this is what I bring.
Mhm.
So I know that whew, when life gets crazy and tiring um, and hard, I can lean into this going, all right, this is stability. This is core. This is real.
Yeah, yeah. I do. I want to go back to what you said about trust, right? And like trust in these diagnostics because there are so many and people will keep making more and more. And a lot of us who, especially if you have individualization high up there or similar strengths like it, like we like to know why we're unique and we like to feel like someone really gets us. I think actually that's a human thing that we feel really gotten, and that there feels like there's almost proof, right? Because just as humans and just in like the world that we're in now, it's so much like where's the proof, where's the proof, where's the proof, um, and so it's so easy to take diagnostics and feel like that's not really me, and as an initial feeling, I absolutely agree with that, especially when it comes to strengths, right? Because strengths are so variable, and because I know strengths so well that I know that they're so variable. But when it comes to other like mechanisms, other tests, right? Being like horoscopes. And I think that a lot of people who need even more data find that like those diagnostics, Myers Briggs, things that kind of put you into this camp and you're in like one of 12 camps, really. Or I mean, with horoscopes, I know it gets very various with all your different planets and stuff like that. But um, even just getting like, your monthly horoscope or whatever it is, it's hard to feel really truly connected because you're like, well, this is a generalization. And that
Hmm.
generalization leads to a lack of trust in a lot of those entities. And sometimes it's like, what is the purpose of having those, right? So both the trust and like what's the purpose? Like, what are you trying to get out of me? Um, with strengths is completely different and it's completely um individual to what you're experiencing. I mean, I personally have so much trust in strengths because like depending on what situation I'm in, like I can see which strengths are being utilized and which ones aren't, and like which ones have gotten tweaked. Maybe like something that I'm experiencing, I'm not getting what I need for that specific strength. And so it feels like it's being discounted or underappreciated in this environment. And that can give me a lot of compassion. for the experience I'm having, and for even the person who maybe is putting me in that situation who doesn't understand that this is why they're feeling pushback from me. It's because I don't naturally lead that way, or I don't like I'm not getting what I need out of this like interaction. And that makes all of those relationships, connections, interactions a lot more like rich, because you can have that conversation of being like, I actually know exactly what's going on here. I'm not getting what I need, and this is what I need. And so you can have that connection with the person, even if they don't know the language of strengths. Like, you can have that language and truly ask for what you need in that moment. That's going to make you feel more full. Um, so much easier said than done. Because knowing that and being in that awareness can be so tricky. And then the strengths is like, you're not trying to um convince someone one way or another, really. Like, sometimes I feel like horoscopes can be, this is a hot take, but sometimes horoscopes can be a little bit of like a sales marketing ploy. They throw it in a magazine so you can like look for your horoscope, and it's just a little tidbit. Or like, people have zodiac sign necklaces or something like that. It can feel like they're leveraging that to kind of use you. And I feel like strengths doesn't feel that way. Like, there is an initial cost, and they've decided to do whatever they want to do with the content that they have. But to have access to that report that you pay for once, and be able to really explore what's there for you, there's so much more there for you than people are gaining by just using it as some sort of like marketing mechanism or something
Right.
like that. So there's so much just like richness and fulfillment to be found in strengths that on the surface you don't really see. Like, I'm really big about saying, like, they give you one word. They give you one word and you're supposed to know. Like, there's no way to just, you need more. And in the report it talks more about it than just the one word, but it does make it a lot more digestible to have the one word, so I understand. But there's so much richness and like fullness in them that can really lead people to feel strong.
Absolutely. And especially when we're talking about a cancer journey, someone experiencing cancer or after, which is where the foundation of you really comes in, because you're so um, inundated with information during the actual treatment or active cancer journey that you may not have this time to have some reflection or processing. And that's okay. We understand that. We see it all the time. But when things get quiet, and that could be during the active cancer experience, or it can be after it, we often hear people say, I'm lost and I need to find myself again. Because until we can like get a hold of ourselves, going through anything, a trying time, a challenging time, or life in general, we need to like get a hold of ourselves. And I really do grab myself like this. It's like, are you there? Who are you? What what can I lean into? Who am I that allows me to show up solid
Yeah.
instead of waffling or shaking? And that's what this particular rendition of strengths has helped me. And we use it with all of our clients, with all of our coaches, and I see them kind of like stand a little more solid because there's something at the base.
Mhm.
And that's really true in terms of when you're lost, you need to find that foundation again, or find that foundation again, or remember the foundation and then step into it. And
Yeah.
that gives you kind of like that solid footing. And that's why it's so important for strengths to be part of what we provide, because before you can really move forward, you've got to get a hold of yourself. And I know that for somebody who's like, I'm ready to go and let's trudge ahead, or not trudging, but I want to move forward, I get them.
Mhm.
And we always start with stop
Yeah.
and locate. It's part of our framework of slams, and it's so important. But when you stop, what are you stopping for, right? It's like I'm stopping to get in connected to myself again. And how do you do that? Strengths are one of the absolute pillars of what you need to lean into.
Yeah, yeah. And I would say too that like strengths it we're so there's a lot of talk out there about like don't go looking out there, look in here for like what the answer is and like how to get solid. But with all those words existing out there, there's not a lot of how. And this is how strengths are one way how to, right? Like when you're feeling lost, it's really easy to try to seek answers out there. I mean, during your cancer treatment, you can't know everything. You can't know all the details of your treatment. Like you do have to have your care team there who tells you everything. So when you're in that mindset too of like, okay, just tell me what to do, and a lot of times people warrior up. They put on their armor and they just go through it and they do whatever they need to get through it, which is completely understandable. That's not, I'm not knocking that as a way to really survive that treatment because it's a really, really overwhelming time. And it's hard, following being in that place to really start to remove that armor and to, like you said, stop, slow down, and reconnect with what's there because part of the armor, it's a boundary between everything external and everything internal. And it's stopping that flow of energy, that information that you're getting externally and internally, and even being able to share what's inside that armor and being able to, like, there's a soft human in there who has all of these emotions and all of these experiences that they're going through. They have the armor so that they feel and look really strong, but they get to be soft and sad or, happy about something and sad about the other thing, grieving something at the same time that they're angry. Like they get to have all of that like inside of them bubbling. But when we have that armor, we forget that it deflects that from being expressed as well. So when you're in that place, it's so hard to like return back to like, okay, what do I really want? Like what actually matters to me? And like who am I when all of this armor is removed? Because sometimes people will feel like jelly when it's removed.
Right.
And it's
Right.
like now all of this has been like almost ripped off of them because they're in a new phase when there's either less treatment or no treatment and everyone, it feels like everyone's gone. And then you're like, well, who do I have but myself now when I was relying so much on other people to help me into this next phase? And you start to kind of have that like realization. It's like, I'm all I have, but you have you. And you have to take care of yourself in the same way that um, you were being taken care of before. And you have to like hold those pieces. Um, and a lot of times, so much time has passed from who you were before and all of this new experience to the new person now that, like, even if you tried to go back and remember who you were, you're not that person anymore. And so you need to reclaim what's here. And strengths are just like the perfect way to do that because they'll travel with you and you can retest and see if they change, but likely they won't much. And so even by holding on to strengths that you had before, that baseline is kind of the same person who you were, but you're going to go through all these experiences which shift them ever so slightly and what you need and like how raw or mature they are and how much you've learned, and you get to add all those experiences to your strengths and show up differently still in those same strengths.
Right. It's like you grow with the strengths. I want to come back to your whole analogy with the armor. It's like we think that we have to put up these barriers to protect us. But it's just like truthfully to me, vulnerability. So I know people are afraid of being vulnerable. And that's in my mind, what that means is being real. And so we feel like we need to protect ourselves with this armor. And sometimes it feels like this is what I witness is that they take on different personas, right? It's like, oh, how I should be or what I should be doing, where instead, like vulnerability, if I'm just truly myself, and that relates back to the strengths, is my strengths are who I am. So if I can lean into that, then I show up quite readily in my strongest self, because
Mhm.
that's what's really there, that's the authentic, that's what's easy, that's what's real, that's what's here. I don't have to do heavy lifting to bring up my strengths. It's just it's like the skin on my body. And so when I do that, I don't have to protect, because that's already there. Someone can't say, oh, ha, 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 Sherry Ann, my number one strength is positivity. You're so positive all the time. Almost in a way that's trying to hurt me. It's kind of passive aggressive. And because I know, yes, I am positive, but not in a Pollyanna way. Not that I'm trying to always throw sunshine over every situation. I'm positive in that I really believe that my the hope for the future. This is where my positivity shows up the most. Is that there is a possible positive outcome, and I would rather spend my energy and time seeing that versus the worst case scenario, which may not come true either.
Mhm.
And so I can see the world with kind of that positive glow. Doesn't mean I'm not real, but that is the way that I choose to see the world. And if someone came in and tried to bust that because they're, oh, in a grumpy place, what is it? Misery loves company. So they want to bring me down. It's like, that's your world and I can accept that. But you don't have to try to bring me down so that you're more comfortable. I can still be with you in my strengths.
Yeah.
And so I've come to really love my positivity, because I can be compassionate, as you said before, accepting, and while it's not armor, it is this being that you can't knock me off my platform or my
Yeah.
foundation. I like that better. Because I know that it's true.
Right. I also heard you're futuristic. So this is very uniquely Sherry how she's gonna see it, right? Because she also has her futuristic and her positivity in there. And our strengths are so innate to us, and which is why there's that level of trust we can have with them. Like they come naturally to us, and a lot of times people don't resonate with their maybe like first strength because it comes so naturally they don't even notice. They're like, yeah, I guess that's there. I don't really think about it. It's like you don't have to. You don't have to think really hard about like being in these strengths. They just show up because you're you. So I love that you said that, and that, in certain situations, maybe before you really understood your strengths, maybe when your strengths were a little bit more raw than mature, like maybe they did show up a little bit Pollyanna-ish or a little bit toxic positivity. And you've been able to grow it and like appreciate it in a way that you're like, I don't want to do that. I still have that strength and I don't want to show up that way. It doesn't resonate with me because that's more of your basement self instead of your balcony self. So it's such a journey that we get to take with these strengths, and I think that's like such a beautiful example too, because it actually ties in more than one of your strengths and shows how unique they work in tandem. Because another person who has positivity, it won't look exactly the same. They're not going to show up exactly the same. And why would they? They have a completely different life experience. I'm sure they have so many other strengths that influence one another. I love that example. I think it's such a good one. Like my top strength is command, and then my second strength is deliberative, which are kind of like opposite ends of this seesaw, which is so interesting to know that dichotomy, right? And then to experience too, because command in especially moments of chaos, it's like, okay, I know exactly what needs to come, like let's go, let's make this move and like let's get out of chaos without freaking out about it. Like I don't really get that like kind of thing. But it's so silly because my deliberative, which is my second one, is very much like, wait, what should we do here that's going to have the least amount of risk? Let's slow down and think about what like the best option is that's going to be the least amount of risk. So when they seem like they butt heads, but they work really well for me, and they work in a way that gets me exactly what I need and what I want, but I don't have to think really hard about that. Like my brain, my soul, my being are all doing that for me. And so whatever comes out is a result of that foundation that I have that I can trust, right? So in times of chaos or in times when something needs to be decided, I don't need to be like, I can't do it. Like, I'm not going to figure it out. Don't get me wrong. There is a little bit of that imposter syndrome that will always show up, but there's also that gives me an extra voice in my head, the strengths voice that's like, you're gonna figure it out like you always do. You're gonna be fine. And that gives me a lot of like like my nervous system actually like relaxes. And just really quickly I wanted to go back to say something about when you're talking about vulnerability, because as you're talking about it in that moment, and maybe this is my takeaway, um but it's kind of strengths related, but it's more about vulnerability. But um I agree that vulnerability is honesty, but I think it's also like emotional honesty is really what the vulnerable part of it is, because I feel very comfortable just being like, and this is the reality of my life, no matter how like deep or heavy it may feel. Like I don't mind sharing those things, but especially very, very openly, but sharing how I really feel about it and how I'm feeling in the moment about it is really what makes it vulnerable for me. So, that's something that I'm noticing in the moment, that like it's not the telling of the honesty and being honest, it's being honest about how I feel in the moment and feeling like it's going to be received, right? Like that's the thing that kind of holds me back about being really honest about how I feel, is that I'm going to like be really open and be really vulnerable, and um in a place that maybe it could hurt to share, um and hope that the person who I'm being vulnerable with can hold that for me, or otherwise they shoot me down and I feel shot down, and that's really like the double-edged sword, right, of vulnerability. So um I just found that to be really, really interesting, of like something that I was just thinking of in that moment. So a little off topic, but
Oh, off, well, maybe not, because I think you demonstrated command and deliberative so well just in that particular um, admission,
uh-huh.
because it's the deliberative which has you go, uh-oh, what am I? I'm opening myself up. But then it is the command um, that really says, this is important. I need to do this because this matters. And so that's them working in tandem. And I also get that when you're being vulnerable like that and you're like, I need to say this, and I will handle whatever the outcome is, that's your command. So,
Yeah.
I mean, your command is so strong. And I got to say that you and I have totally different um, top five. And when I first saw that, I'm like, ooh, how do we relate to each other? And yet it is more complementary than I don't need you to be the same as me. I actually need you to show me the different perspectives. And by knowing that the lens that you see through, understanding the strengths just gives me much more willingness to treat you the way that you want to be treated, rather than have you be just like me and don't you see the world through my lens? No, I mean, we're all different, 1 in 33 million, right? And
Right.
then when we add in values, which is a whole nother conversation and part of the foundation of you, it's just everybody is incredibly unique. And that is, I think that's my takeaway and the
Mhm.
point, which is, we don't, while it feels really good to be in the company of other people who are very similar to you, and it's like, this is my posse, it's more of how diverse and how interesting people are and life can be, and how we can all be together and really bring our strengths out there to the world so that we can make a difference. Bottom
Yeah.
line, having a contribution into this world. So my word is unique.
Yeah. Okay, I'll just do like a quick wrap up takeaway because I don't know if the vulnerability one really was my takeaway, but my takeaway is that compassion. It is that compassion for ourselves and others. And like, I think that in my life, I mean, it's only been about 30 years, but like, there it was hard for me to really understand compassion. Passion I understood, love I got, but compassion for someone else's experience and that appreciation of the differences, just as you said, that is like something that I think strengths has taught me more than anything. And also that like there's nothing wrong with you. There is absolutely nothing wrong with you just because you see something differently than everyone else does. No one sees everything the same, and that is more than okay. And the best we can do is to like love and appreciate the differences we have with one another, as well as the similarities. Like we get to enjoy all of that. So my word is compassion. We do have to end with pesh too, so I'm gonna let you pesh at the end here.
Oh, okay. Physically for 3, emotions for 4, spirit for 5, hope for 6, and my word is joy.
Okay, physically 3.75, emotionally 4.5. I'm gonna make that a 4.75. I just love strengths. Spiritually 4.25, hope is 4.5, and my word's compassion still. Well, thank you for tuning in with us. We hope that you can come to the Foundation of You. It is our live in person event. It's going to be Saturday and Sunday, February 1st and 2nd. We are running right now a special little sale that's if you buy your ticket, you automatically get a free ticket for a friend. So that way, in this vulnerable space, you don't have to feel like you're doing it alone, and you have someone there to hold your hand that you trust. So we hope you
Yeah.
can join us.
Yes, it's a great 2 days. Everybody who's taken it has walked away going, "Wow!" So I love that feedback. It's in Half Moon Bay, California, which is in the San Francisco Bay Area, and we'd love to have you. Thank you for joining us. Remember, you're more powerful than you realize, and have a lovely day.